Well, thank you so much for helping my project.
Sure.
Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Mike Scott. I'm from Dallas originally. Went to school here in Texas my whole life. Got out of school in 1990, out of college. Worked for 10 years in a couple of different industries, and then came to work at NASA in 2000. Worked on the shuttle program until the last flight in July of 2011.
What was that like to see that last shuttle flight?
Well, it was great to actually be in the control center in the back room for that. It was just, I've got a recording of it. Just to see everyone working as a team and just like they did on all the other ones, and they didn't really think about it until after it launched, but it was just great to sit there and see it happening on the screens live in the control center while the rest of the world was watching it too, because it was a huge historical event.
Wow. Now as we get close to the end of the station, I guess maybe it's starting to feel a little bit similar, huh?
It does.
Wow.
It's different in the sense the station is not. We don't know how station is going to end exactly yet. We knew how shuttle was going to end because all the missions were the same. They were planned out the same way. We knew what the date was. We knew exactly what was going to happen with the station. We don't really have a date yet. I was hearing today it was going to take 6 months to deorbit it. You know, how's that going to look? You know, it's going to be strange to see how that's all going to play out. And we don't even really know which year. I've heard 2030 and 2031. So.
Yeah, and plans. What is it? People make plans and God laughs, or something like that.
Yeah, but some of those feelings are the same with the end station coming up compared to shuttle. Yeah, definitely.
But on the other side of it, we haven't been to the moon since 1972, and now we're about to be putting new boot prints on it.
Yeah,
that's gonna feel exciting.
I'm very excited about that. The whole reason I got into the space program was to go because I wanted the Apollo thing. I wanted to go to the moon and see us do things on the moon and put people on the moon. Oh, there's the moon right there. There's people on the moon. It's harder when it's Mars because it's just a little dot in the sky.
Sure.
It's a much farther away, but it's just so exciting to know that we're about to, go back to the moon. And it looks like we know how we're going to do that, and it's going to happen in the next couple of years. It's very exciting for me personally. Of course, I'm very disheartened at some of our social media platforms where more and more people seem like they don't believe we went to the moon because the younger generation wasn't there when it all happened to see how it all developed, and they don't have the perspective. That all they see are some YouTube videos that someone made that they don't understand how things worked. But me personally, I'm very excited about the fact that we're about to go back.
Yeah, in fact, I guess that popular movie Interstellar, they kind of touched on that whole phenomenon. And I've actually talked to some people through my project who are in that line of thought, and I've been trying to process why that might be. I think it's people's way to kind of protect themselves. Like it's easier to think you never had something than to think you had something and lost it.
Yeah.
And going back to the moon's like that.
Well, to me, it's like the younger generation who weren't around and they can't relate to the technology back then. They think that the technology was so rudimentary that we couldn't do it.
Right.
So they're used to, okay, you can get on the internet and you've got a gigabit data transfer. You can download a whole movie in 2 seconds. Where back then there was no such thing as the internet. You couldn't get on and search for anything. There was no video over the internet. Instant video. They want to see video on everything. They want to see live video from the moon lander and the Intuitive Machines thing that landed. They don't understand how the bandwidth and radio transmissions and using Deep Space Network versus a satellite that's in Earth orbit. They don't have a concept of all these things, so it seems more impossible to them that things happened back then.
Well, and on the other side of that, you have Voyager 1 and 2 still out there, still talking, working, even after, haven't had a single reboot in 50 years?
Yeah, that's amazing. But when you look at the equipment we use to communicate with those things, big giant dishes that are 80 meters across or whatever it is, some huge number, some giant dish somewhere in different parts of the world. As the Earth rotates, you can still have communication with the thing. It's kind of beyond a lot of people's knowledge or even comprehension on that we have to use that type of a system to talk to things that are outside of Earth orbit.
Yeah, it's pretty astounding.
Yeah.
Whenever you think about where all this might lead to, if you were to think out 200 years in the future, do you think we're still all on the Earth just making these little short trips to places, or do you think we fundamentally like expanded as a civilization so that people travel to the moon and Mars, like we might travel to like Antarctica or the Himalayas?
I do think it'll be more like Antarctica, and I think we'll have the ability to generate fuel and oxygen and water from the resources on the moon and Mars. That's what I'm thinking. That the evidence looks like there's enough material there to do that, and I think there's more of a drive to do that now. And I'm hoping it's going to come from the private space industry, like Elon Musk and SpaceX, because it takes vision to do that, and I'm not sure that the governments of the world have the vision and the money to do that. Private capital, I think there was a lot of people willing to invest in private capital to make things like that happen, for tourism, if for no other reason, but also for science.
Well, and also you need like a forcing function. I remember Gwen Shotwell coming here for like the fireside chat, with Vanessa.
Yes.
And she said, for a private company, time is life. Like they have so much money, they're spending it so fast. If they don't do it so quickly, they simply will just go out of business.
Yeah, that's
Whereas
a good point.
On the government side, we just wait for the next budget.
Well, there's also the investment side, and there's a lot of people that are willing to invest in that sort of thing. You can't really invest in that if it's a government operation. You just convince the Congress to spend more money on something. It's different from investing your money in them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah. I mean, it's difficult to measure sort of like the return whenever it's not money. It's hard to quantify. Yeah. I mean, like how much do we make the American population happier or more fulfilled? It's a difficult number, but for businesses, it's really easy. They take the money that came in, subtract their expenses, and then what came out at the bottom is how they measure their progress.
And if the businesses are successful, they get multifold. I mean, look at I watched a documentary on SpaceX called Return to Flight last night. First time I've seen it. It's a great documentary. So what you said is it was very evident in that where they launched Falcon 1 4 different times, trying to make it work, and people were watching them. And then once they made it go to orbit, there was all of a sudden a $1.5 billion contract for them. NASA called Elon and said, "You have a contract for $1.5 billion." So instantly they, however many times, multiplied their budget that they had to do more and more. It's going to be the same when we put a private space station in orbit, or we put a private base on the moon or Mars. People are going to see that and say, "Wow, I want to be part of that. I want to go there for tourism or to help do science." I mean, it's going to be a snowball effect, and right now the snowball is getting bigger and bigger. There was no snowball before Elon Musk. There was just a government plan to, first it was go to an asteroid, and then let's go to Mars, and then they switched to go to the moon. I think they might have switched a couple of times with the different administrations that came in. So now we're on back to going to the moon with private partnership, and I think that's really good because the private partnership I think it's what's going to drive the ultimate economy and the hardware and facilities on the moon and Mars. That's what I think.
And it's gotten bipartisan support from 2 different administrations, from multiple people in Congress, and so
that's right.
It's kind of good. If you could, would you take a trip to space?
Personally, I would not, because I think it's still too unsafe to do so. It's not worth the risk. My personal risk level, it's not worth it. There's some people who want to go so badly they're willing to accept the risk. I personally am not. I also like kind of being behind the scenes and helping with these projects behind the scenes, and not having the scrutiny, you know what I'm saying, and the level of responsibility that astronauts would have, even private astronauts. Just not my thing.
Let's say it becomes more common, like taking an airplane trip. How many people would need to go before you to feel like you would be comfortable?
Thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah.
But not tens of thousands, maybe.
Maybe not, but more than a few hundred.
Definitely.
We've only sent 200 or 300 people to space, so.
Yeah, not too many.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for helping my project. It was such a pleasure to get to talk to you.
Thanks for doing your project.
Thank you.